Kremlin spokesman is denying a Russian airstrike on the Ukrainian port of Odessa at the weekend will impact on the export of grain. At least 2 rockets hit the harbor within hours of Moscow having signed a deal designed to guarantee the safe passage of wheat and maize to countries in desperate need, including several African countries. In other developments, defenses around the East Ukrainian city of Kharkiv are being bolstered with reports of an imminent Russian attack. Our chief correspondent, John Cookson, reports.
Kharkiv, Ukraine's second biggest city, has experienced almost daily shelling over the past month. Now there are reports of a major Russian assault being imminent, so Ukrainian forces on the front line are bolstering their defenses. All the time, though, on the alert for the sound of Russian shells. They push on under fire. The Ukrainians don't know when the big Russian assault will begin, but they say they're prepared. Commander Melnik, chief of the Kharkiv garrison, says the Russians can't move 1 meter forward. They don't have enough forces to take Kharkiv, he says. Less than 24 hours after Russia signed a deal to allow millions of tons of grain to be shipped out of the Ukrainian port of Odessa, 2 sea-launched Russian-caliber cruise missiles slammed into the harbour. The Ukrainians say this is proof that Moscow can't be trusted. The Kremlin insists, though, they had hit a military target. Whatever the truth, the consensus today is that the deal remains intact and grain will start moving, although Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov launched this verbal broadside at the Zelensky regime.
Russian and Ukrainian people would continue to live together. We will certainly help Ukrainian people to get rid of the regime which is absolutely anti-people and anti-historical, if you wish.
Although more than 6 million Ukrainians have fled the war, at least 1 million have returned, including those in the Donbass region, much of it now under Russian control. Some never left despite the bombing, including 82-year-old Tamara Markova. She says, if the Russians bomb us heavily, our house is too weak, our ceiling is not strong enough, our house is old. Putin is a crazy man, she says. They know all about war in the Donbass. There's been fighting here for 8 years. The sound of shelling and rocket fire and funerals, very much part of the fabric of life. John Cookson, Arise News.
And of course, John joins us now for more. John, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. Now, you said in your report the grain deal is still intact after the assault on Odessa. How safe is it for port workers with the threats of Russian rockets?
Hi guys, great to be on Newsday. Well, I spent some time in Odessa myself earlier this year in March, and even then the region was being rocketed by the Russian Navy. And the people there have, in a sense, got used to rocket attacks, as one does in war zones after time. And of course, the harbour area clearly is not safe if the Russians fired rockets as they did over the weekend. But my sense of it is that I think the Russian statement today that they were hitting a military target, it could well be true. Because the Ukrainians are well known for keeping military equipment in civilian areas, and that would include the harbour. That said, the port itself of Odessa, when I was there, was virtually a military base, so there's lots of military equipment there. This deal was hammered out last week to get the grain moving, 25 million tons of it stuck in silos and on ships, in a world desperate for maize and wheat and sunflower oil. And because of the international agreement that was made between Russia, Ukraine, the UN and Turkey, with all those elements, my sense of it is that we'll see grain moving this week at some point, despite the recent Russian rocket attack on the harbour. It's just too big a deal to fall through, and there's so much pressure in the world community for this grain to start moving, to get to countries that desperately need it, including those in North Africa and in East Africa. The other pressure is that there's a new harvest now in Ukraine on the point of coming home, to use that farming expression, and there's nowhere to put it. Also, farmers are wondering, what to plant for next year. So for all those reasons, and the international pressure, the agricultural pressure, the demand for the wheat and the maize and other products that Ukraine supplies to the rest of the world, I think we'll see some movement this week.
And Ukraine's President Zelensky is remaining defiant that he can win this war. Can you tell us more of what he's been saying?
Well, yeah, defiant as always. The Ukrainian president, he was speaking ahead of a public holiday. He said that Ukrainian forces are prepared to inflict heavy losses on the Russians. He spoke of the 1,000-year history of Ukraine. He also mentioned the fact that Ukraine was on a fast track to join the European Union, although in European Union terms, fast track can take many years. So he was characteristically upbeat at this time when Ukrainian forces are still losing men and women on the battlefield, although battlefield deaths on the Ukrainian side are said to be down from 200 a day to about 30 a day, but and even that, of course, is a tragedy. But Zelensky, typically upbeat in his overnight message to Ukrainian people. He also mentioned that he thought that the Russians would be advancing in the Kherson region, that's lies between Donbass and cities like Odessa that we've just been speaking about. Kherson city is already in Russian hands. And Zelensky hinted that the Russians could have this now as their next battlefield to advance further from Kherson city into the Kherson region itself. So much concern from the Ukrainian president, but confident as always.
All right, confidence as always. But in your reports, you show Ukrainian refugees returning home to a war zone. Why are they going back despite the dangers?
I spent many hours, probably days and nights, with thousands of Ukrainian refugees when they were leaving in March, and I traveled thousands of miles with them on trains, and all of them, to a man and a woman, say, look, we're leaving our homes, and they grabbed what they could, the clothes, prized possessions, sentimental items, kids, of course, the cat, the dog, and if they could take Granny with them, they would take Granny. But they always said, even then, that this was a temporary move for them. They were leaving their homes because it was dangerous to stay there because of Russian attacks. But they would go back, and of course, why wouldn't they? That's where their home is, that's where their lives are, that's where their jobs are. And some indeed never left, as that lady in my report, the 82-year-old woman. She never left because, she wasn't able to leave. She was too frail. So they are going back, not in massive numbers. About 1 million have returned so far from countries like Germany and Poland and here in the UK. It's a trickle back in general terms, but they are returning. And to answer your question, they're returning home because it is their home, and that's where their lives were, and that's where they want their lives to be for the future. And leaving Ukraine was always seen as a temporary move by them.
Arise Chief Correspondent John Cookson, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.